In this current climate, day and time, information needs to be given clearly. In this case, Clear Vision with 2020 is a podcast for the people, by the people, that does exactly that. Your host keeps an open eye and mind when dealing with any issue at hand. We empower our audience with knowledge. You matter. And here, I use my voice to support and represent the people. The people are the human family who loves truth. Logical thinking and conversation skills are required for communication. News, culture, music, and entertainment with a clear look from a different perspective. Clear Vision with 2020.
Peace, family. This is your brother 2020, and you are tuned in to Clear Vision Conversations. This is a new forum that I started, and this forum is a forum of conversations. So feel free to comment in the comments below on the video, as well as watching and telling me what you think. Okay. These are gonna be a series of recordings. As soon as I'm able to, I'm gonna go live with it, and we're gonna have these live conversations right here in the public. Okay. After I get some things set up, all of the uncensored conversations, we're gonna have those on my website. I'm getting all of that stuff together, as we speak. So, as well as the merch and everything else is going to be involved as well. So you're going to be able to see the rollout as I build everything up. So right now, this conversation is about the streets. All right. I don't know what the misconception is about what goes on in the streets, but we're going to have to clear a few of these things up. Now, as far as I'm concerned, our children has been given a raw deal. See, some of us didn't know what the streets consisted of until we actually got out there and started participating. And what I mean by participating is we started being out on the streets, able to see the things that's going on. Okay. I remember when I was growing up, you only seen certain things. You had to be in the proper place, allowed to be in the proper place during the time those things were going on. Sometimes you ran into those things while you were out there. Okay. The people who went looking for them, they had to talk to somebody who knew where to find that type of activity. And it was their choice whether they wanted to participate in it or not. So we're going to talk about a few things. One of the things we're going to talk about is the quote unquote gang culture. How this gang culture has influenced the black youth and the brown youth, and in some cases, the white youth as well. Or we can say the youth of the human family in the proper context, but specifically focus on black youth and brown youth, because we've been seeming to have the most problems and the issues with it. Okay. The other part that we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about whether or not this is actually a part of the culture, quote unquote, or it's just something that we just took participation in because it was there. And it might have had something to do with the fact that we weren't in the proper mindset to be able to deal with it. Okay. So, with that being said, we're going to get right down to it. All right. As you can see, this is Agent 2020. Now, the agent stands for something, and we'll get into that another time during the podcast. Or let me say that during the conversation. We're not going to get into that part of it right now. So we're going to start with the gang culture, quote unquote. Most people really don't understand where it came from or how it came about, but I do. Okay. I've done some research with the help of some friends of mine who were actually involved, who actually came from the places where they started, spoke on how they started, according to the people that were in their lives that told them about it, as well as them seeing it with their own eyes. Okay. So a lot of this gang culture that we hear about, we've heard about it through the music. And the reason why we've heard about it through the music is because the music has given us what we would call a gateway or a view into what this gang culture looks like by the people who were participating in it or who's seen it. So you either get a perspective from the outside looking in, or you get a perspective from somebody who was inside and they're able to speak based on what they went through or what they saw other people that they knew go through. So let's start with the Gangster Disciple Nation and the Vice Lord Nation. These two particular aspects started in Chicago, Illinois. The first aspect of it, the Gangster Disciple Nation, consisted of the Gangster Disciples and the Black Disciples coming together to form this nation. Okay. Once they formed this nation, they had a set of laws and regulations that they adhered to. These rules and regulations allowed you to function inside this organization in a certain way. Now, this nation came together right around the time in the 70s. Okay. In the 70s, it was what you would consider some extracurricular activities going on in our neighborhoods, black and brown neighborhoods specifically. Okay. These extracurricular activities consisted of some hustling, some pimping, different types of rackets. Some of these organizations that were later titled gangs by the establishment kind of patterned themselves after the mob to we're just going to be honest about the situation. Okay. Some of these organizations extorted their own people. If you wanted to be a part of it, you had to pay dues. You had to participate in certain activities or you wasn't considered real. You had to follow certain guidelines, rules, laws, regulations, whether you wanted to or not wasn't the issue. Once you become a part of it, these are things that you had to adhere to. The other aspect are the Crips and Bloods that started out in the West Coast. Okay. Now, these particular groups of black youth, the four that I just mentioned, and then you have offshoots like the Latin Kings, uh, Chicago, New York. Um, you had the Puerto Rican gangs, Chicago, New York, and Los Angeles. like 18th Street out in California. Different different aspects of the quote unquote gang life organizations. A lot of these organizations came together as a form of protection. Crips, Community Revolution in Progress, they were different groups, different neighborhood, what they called back at this time, neighborhood clubs that got together to protect themselves against the white gangs that were terrorizing the black neighborhoods at that time. This was during the late 50s, early 60s, up through the 70s. Okay. Go watch Crips and Bloods Made in America. You should be able to find it on YouTube. If you can't find it on YouTube, if you got Amazon Prime Video, it's on Prime Video. It's free. You don't have to worry about buying it. If you want to buy it, you can do that as well. It gives you a very detailed history of how this started, coming directly from the people that are still alive or that were still alive at that time, who were able to speak on it from their perspective. They were on the inside telling you what was going on. Okay. I watched the video so many different times and I got it on DVD. I just got to find it somewhere. And I'll be able to start adding clips of these things, you know, to the channel so we can really have these conversations about them. The Bloods started off as a group that were, since they didn't want to be Crips, they started banding together, and out of protection from the different Crip sets, T. Rogers, who just passed away a couple years ago, may Allah be pleased with him, went from Chicago to Los Angeles. He was a member of the Black Peace Stones, which was a offshoot of the Vice Lords in Chicago, moved out to Los Angeles, started the Black Peace Stones out there, and those Black Peace Stones turned into what you would consider Bloods. Okay. The red rag was basically for the blood of the people. This was an organization that wasn't meant to be a gang. He said that out of his own mouth. There's a book, I can't remember what it's called right now. Speaking of the gang life, I'm gonna have to look it up. Hold on, let me see if I can find it real quick. We're gonna see if we can find it. I'm about to look it up here. And in this book, these were actual gang members, quote unquote, who spoke from their perspective about what was going on. It's called Uprising. Crips and Bloods tell the story of America's youth in the crossfire. Ice-T narrated it. Well, he gave the introduction pretty much. Excuse me. My cousin had purchased this book because when I heard about it, I was the one who told him to go get it. And the reason why I did was because I wanted him to get a inside perspective on what the gang life was all about, because he called himself wanting to join an organization and all of that stuff. And I told him, nah, that's really not a good idea. I aligned myself with an organization because somebody that was close to me, was just happened to turn out to be one of my best friends' stepbrothers, has saved my life when I was 13 years old. I almost drowned at the public swimming pool that we used to all go to. I seen him about a year or so later. And I looked at him, we talked and everything. I thanked him for jumping in and saving me because a lot of us didn't know how to swim. We was trying to learn how to swim on our own. We didn't have the money to take swimming lessons or anything like that. So I seen this tattoo on his arm and I asked him what it was, and he told me what it was. From the perspective he gave me, it was an organization of brotherhood, and regardless of what the situation was, they had your back, so on and so forth. So I was like, you know what? That sounds like something I'd like to learn more about. So once I told him about that, he started talking to me about it and everything. And I told him, I was like, you know what? I might want to see if I can join that. At the time where I'm from, it was a lot of young dudes that was running around calling themselves quote unquote GDs, so on and so forth. What I would like to call a loosely knit band of guys from the neighborhood. This was right before what you would call the crack era hit. So this was probably early to mid 80s. Okay. When I started affiliating myself with these brothers, I seen the whole nother side of how we were treating each other. Now, we're going to take into consideration, I didn't have any knowledge of self back then. I really didn't know anything about why the stuff was going on in my neighborhood and that was happening to my people. I was a studier of history, but I didn't really know because I was too busy trying to be out in the streets and trying to be a part of that stuff. You know, my mother couldn't really control that aspect of it. Once I got outside the house, whatever I got myself into was up to me. Okay. So this is one of the reasons why I said some of the fathers wanted their children to be just like them. Some of the mothers wanted their children to be just like them. Okay. My mother wasn't involved in any of that stuff. I got involved in it because of the sense of brotherhood. On top of that, I kind of like the principles. Okay. I like the rules that they went by. So as time started going on and as I started getting older, running with these brothers and doing the things that I was doing, I was still in school. I started seeing my peers just kind of like fall to the wayside, drop out here and there, here and there. Next thing I know, I see more of them outside on the corner than I do in school. This was around the time of the crack era. When that came into effect, that had a profound effect on the group. And I didn't understand that this was going on nationwide at this time. I'm just from a small town in Indiana, and I'm just seeing it from that perspective. But the same thing that was going on in small town America was going on in the larger cities in a big on a broader scale. So as time went on, I started feeling like, I understand the principles, but I don't know if they're being used in the proper format. I don't know if they're being followed in the right way by us. So my perspective of it started changing. Then as I got knowledge of self, I started realizing that this isn't what I thought it was or what it should be. So I said, you know what? Maybe I need to start looking at this from a different perspective. That was when I started listening to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. That's when I got Message to the Black Man. I was about 16 years old, and I started reading the book, and it just changed my whole perspective on how I looked at my people. I started looking at my people more with love than I did with hate. So I slowly but surely started changing my process and thought process on what was going on. And, as we get older, we don't really grow out of things. Sometimes our perspective of things just change. So I started looking at my brothers, I started looking at the gang life and all of this stuff a little bit differently. When I started learning the truth and started seeing how we went to the wayside in a way, this is when I started paying more attention to the leaders or the people that were in positions of authority within these organizations and what they were saying as they got older, as they started seeing the effect that this was having on the youth in the streets. Some of us decided that we were going to change our ways and how we did things, keep the principles. Others felt like I'm still going to do what I'm going to do. Since I've been representing it this way, I'm going to stay representing it this way. And this is where I think we started falling short because it was split right down the middle. Half of us took that to heart and made that a part of our everyday life, did whatever we did, suffered whatever consequences we suffered, took it like a man in a lot of cases, and kind of grew from it. Others of us decided that that's not the type of life we wanted and started going another direction with it, still staying in the same path of loving their brothers, but just not doing everything that they were doing. Which brings me to this generation of the youth right now. They were seeing exactly what we were doing out there and they were paying close attention. When they were seeing the type of lifestyles that their fathers, their grandfathers, their uncles, their big cousins, and everything was leading, then they decided that they wanted to participate in that as they got older. But the aspect of it changed up. There was no longer any laws, any rules, any regulations that you followed. You just was out there doing whatever you was doing because that's what you wanted to do. If you wanted to hustle, you was just out there hustling. You didn't really have no allegiance to nobody but your crew of people, your group of people. So as the group started splintering and disbanding and started turning into so many different, what you would call sets or crews or cliques or whatever, things in the street just got all the way out of control, just started getting absolutely hectic. Now, this was going on between Gangster Disciples, Vice Lords, Crips, and Bloods all over the country, from California, from the West Coast to the East Coast, from the North to the South. Okay. To the point to where it's been having a profound effect on our youth. Now, all of a sudden, we got this thing about not snitching. We got this thing about, you know what I'm saying, don't tell and keep your mouth shut and you under a code of silence. I mean, so many different things. And look at what it's turned into now. We look at the stop snitching as a part of Black culture, but it's not. We start looking at we don't talk to police as a part of Black culture, but it's not. This is a direct offshoot of what you would consider the gang culture. The gang culture was basically outlined and started by what you would consider mob culture, because that's what the mob did. They had rackets where they extorted their own people, protection, numbers running, drug dealing, extortion, all those things was going on with the mobsters. They were able to do all of that stuff to their own people and still be able to survive after all of this time. Still going on right now in different countries. These mobs turned into cartels. These cartels have the same type of rules and regulations and laws. Some of them are written, a lot of them are unwritten. You know what it is when you get into it. There are people that's been able to survive these lifestyles, live to talk about it, and give their insight on it. A lot of us didn't listen. A lot of us wanted to really be a part of that and keep that mentality. That mentality caused a lot of lives to be taken on either side of what you would call the gun. On you either getting it pointed at you or you're doing the point. You're either a victim of it or you're participating and you're being a perpetrator. So look at all the cases now that's going on. Look at all of these kingpins that fell, and we can go all the way back starting, you know what I'm saying, in the 40s and the 50s, you know, with different people who got themselves involved with the mob. Then as the 70s and 80s came up, you had people being involved in drug dealing, drug distribution. You know, you got all of these stories of these kingpins and how they fell. You got all these stories of these, you know, um, godfathers of this type of activity and how they either fail or they progress to a point to where they was like, you know what? I'm done with it. I got to do something different with my life. I don't want my children to see me being like this. Then you had some of us that was like, I want my children to be a part of this. I want them to adopt these rules and regulations that I adopted because I want them to live the type of lifestyle that I live. I don't want them to have to deal with all of the problems. So I'm going to try to teach them differently. Well, it really didn't work out that way because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting different results. Those different results might have happened in a brief period of time from a brief perspective. Then what ended up really happening was you ended up falling victim to the same thing that your predecessors fell victim to the point to where now uh, the exploitation of women, how we treat our women, how we treat women in general, pertaining to this gang life. Now you got the females out here want to be parts of gangs. You know, now the female gangs are the fastest growing segment of the population out here in the world. They got that from us. They got that from us telling them how good the gang life was, how cool the gang life was, that they wanted to be like the men that they were dating or that they were looking at. Then that stuff started bleeding into the music. So the life of the streets isn't what it's all cracked up to be. Street life has affected our people for the last 2 or 3 generations. And the generation is between 20 and 30 years. So we're going all the way back to the 60s in this case. Late 60s to the late 70s to the late 80s to the late 90s up until now. It has progressed and turned into something different with the same principles behind it. Now it's cool to run around carrying guns. Now it's cool to aim those guns at people who look like you. You have to have a gun to protect yourself out here in the streets, regardless of whether you're doing any crime or not. I've never owned a gun before. I wanted to when I was younger, But I knew that that wasn't too good of an idea. It wasn't a good idea for me because what probably would have ended up happening is I probably wouldn't be here talking to you today if I would have really took that into consideration and really ran with that. Because I'm gonna be honest with you when I say this. I didn't like myself for a long time. And if I didn't like myself, I damn sure didn't give a damn about you if you was outside of me. Especially if you crossed me or did something to me that I didn't like. So it wasn't a good idea for me to have a weapon because with me hating myself during that time period of my life, I probably wouldn't be here right now because I probably would have ended up killing one of my brothers just because I had a disdain for myself. And if anything was done to me and I took that personal, then you got to go. So I thank a lot of God every day that that message to the black man fell into my lap because that changed my perspective on my people. So thank you to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for resurrecting the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam starting in 1977. Want to give a special shout out to my brother, Harrison L. Muhammad, because he was one of the reasons why I was able to start looking at my life differently in the city of Anderson, Indiana. And I want to thank the Nation of Islam for being that type of family that some of us didn't even get the chance to experience from our own personal family. Having a family outside of a family that wasn't affiliated with the destruction of ourselves. Nipsey Hussle, Young Dolph, Yo Gotti's young brother, Freaky Ty from the Lost Boys, man, um, King Von, FBG Duck, so many of our brothers fell victim to this type of mentality, to these type of going ons in the streets. I really want to say that all of those brothers I named, may Almighty God be pleased with you and hopefully be able to forgive you for all of the things that happened. Those brothers were products of their environment. Some of them tried to change and do something better. Skylar Rock. Um, these are, I mean, I'm just naming the people who were victims of violence. Big L, all of these brothers that got taken away from us, along with the brothers and sisters who were a part of these organizations that got taken away from us through the violence and the retaliation as the wars went on back and forth, you know, from the West Coast to the East Coast. May Allah be pleased with all of you who are no longer here. The streets to me are not where it's at. Now is the time for us to start being responsible for our communities, responsible for our children, responsible for the things that go on our streets. So to a lot of you young brothers out there who are carrying these weapons, you should be using these weapons to protect your community. You shouldn't be using these weapons to hurt each other. I know it takes a lot to change that mentality, but it has to start somewhere. You know, this conversation has to begin somewhere. I don't like seeing us waste our lives away. Right here in this city, Youth been dying for the last 2 and 3 years for no reason. A lot of them been going to jail for no reason. A lot of them have been participating in these activities because they've watched their elders participate in these activities. Some of them just don't want to work. Some of them like the fast dollar over the slow nickel. I was one of those people. Wanted to have the fast dollar and the slow nickel at the same time. Didn't work out for me. I had to pay for it by giving up about 5 years of my life. And it took an additional 15 to 20 years for me to get up out of that. I've had that charge on me ever since I decided to participate. That was my fault. That didn't have anything to do with my mother. Didn't have anything to do with the fact that we were struggling, that we was poor. I chose to do that because I wanted to do it. A lot of the people I know personally chose to do that because they wanted to do it. Some of them did it because they didn't have any choice. They had to find a way to take care of themselves. Some of the people I know, parents was on the same drug that they were selling or on something different. They didn't have any choice but to do something to take care of themselves because they weren't being taken care of by the people that brought them into the world. I'm not using it as an excuse. I'm just speaking the truth. From the East Coast to the West Coast, that's how it was. If your mother was on crack and she wasn't taking care of you as you got older and you seen the brothers out on the streets making all the money that they was making doing what they was doing, you wanted to participate in that. Some of these brothers that was out there doing that started preying on the youth, because the youth wasn't catching the cases like they would catch and wasn't getting the time that they were getting. So they used our youth as tools and slaves to hustle their products and catch these cases. Some of us raised our children in that lifestyle. Some of us regret it. Some of us don't. My whole reasoning behind this conversation is out of and from a place of love. I never did like how our neighborhoods were. I never did like the fact that we were going through all of this stuff and I didn't know why we were going through it. Now I got an idea why. And being steeped in that culture, being steeped in that mindset and that lifestyle for so long, I know it's hard for a lot of us to come up out of it. Sometimes it takes something drastic. You know, when it's what they consider blood on the streets, it's kind of hard for us to let go of that. It's kind of hard for us to let go of that aspect that, you know what I'm saying, we lost a homeboy behind this. And we lost a homeboy behind that. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm not giving it up. I'm never going to like the other side because they took my brother from me. And it's a mutual thing on both sides. But something has to be what's considered a catalyst to start a change in that. Nipsey was one of those people. Von was one of those people that was the catalyst for somebody to decide, you know what? I don't want this life anymore. I done lost enough homies. I done been through enough stuff. I need to change this up. And I need to make sure that I always remember my brother and make sure that everybody knows that. I never liked seeing a black man or a black woman get hurt or took out of this world for participating in this type of activity. I never did like it. And I'm glad now that I can actually start having this type of conversation without my brothers thinking for 1 minute that I don't love them. It's coming from a place of love, because we really need to start looking at the things that go on in our community. I had a conversation with some brothers at the barbershop. This was years ago. And I asked them, I said, why is the police in our neighborhood all the time? Is it because our neighborhood is under occupation because they don't like us? Or is it because of the things that we're doing in the neighborhood? Some people chose one or the other. I said it's both. I said it was both. So what are we going to do to make our neighborhood safe and decent places to live? We got to go out here and talk to our brothers and let them know we love them. But at the same time, we should be able to come out here and give them some other alternatives to do something different than what they're doing. They have to have a little bit of patience, though, as well. They have to be able to know that this isn't going to be easy. This is going to be a total change of direction. But I'm going to stick with it, because as long as I stick with it, I'm able to live. I'm able to preserve my life. I look at Young Thug in the case that he's going in right now, and I say it like this. And like I said, this is just my opinion. When he started making that money, before he started making that money, he might have been doing something he shouldn't have been doing. After he started making that money legally, using his mind to make these songs, he started going back and getting his homies off the streets. Now, if they didn't want to stop living that street life, that was really on them. That wasn't on him. Okay. I wouldn't care if he didn't want to stop doing it. You didn't have to do it. You didn't have to participate in it with him. Some brothers don't have a choice. But once you find an alternative route to do something different, then you have to take that route, and you have to have faith that, you know what, if this is going to work for me, then I can show somebody else how to do the same thing. Or I could pull them into what I'm doing to get them out of that lifestyle, to get them off of those streets, to get them out of that hustle. If they want to stay in it, then they have to face the consequences of their actions. They shouldn't be pulling nobody down with them. Now, the reason why Thug and all of his people got charged with what they got charged with probably was because of the type of activity that was going on. He participated in some of that. I don't think he participated in anything violent. I don't think a lot of the brothers did. I know you got your quote unquote shooters and all of that stuff, that goes on. Us killing each other and everything, or not liking each other, and us toting these guns that they call sticks and everything else around. But at the same time, there has to come a time where that stuff has to stop. This brother shouldn't have to be responsible for everything that the people who affiliate themselves with him or associated themselves with him did. He should be able to take his case. They should be taking theirs too. If they were found guilty doing something, if they were actually doing something, should none of them be in jail just for the fact of association? It shouldn't have been an indictment like that going on if none of these brothers were actually caught doing something or implicated in more ways than one in doing something. Shouldn't be no guilt by association, but that's how it is, though. So everybody that was affiliated or that was close to this brother, when they went after him, they went after them. And they did it all because of the music. Heard some things in the music. Now all of a sudden they want to go after him. And, well, you doing all of this, extracurricular activities, so we're going to arrest you. We're going to put an indictment out on you. So now you and everybody that's associated with you are charged. When the DA said, if you do a crime in Atlanta, and you want to put it on tape or on wax, then we're going to come and get you. Just paraphrasing what she said. She made it seem like that was a declaration of war against anybody who was out here doing that. You had the drill rap, you had the drug rap, you had the cocaine rap, whatever you want to call it. Those were the stories of the brothers that they were putting out here doing what they were doing. Some of that stuff has came back on them in ways that they wasn't expecting. Now, if you wasn't doing that and you was just talking like you were doing it, they took it literally now. They think that you were really out here doing it. They're trying to link those things to the crimes that they got on file. This is the stuff that has to stop. These are the things that have to come to an end, because we've lost too many brothers. We've lost too many potential fathers. We lost too many potential heads of households behind these things. Too many brothers have been dying. Yo Gotti's brother just got killed after a funeral. I mean, you see what I'm saying? It's just getting to the point where it's just getting out of hand. They just found some brothers guilty of killing FBG Duck. So he's gone and they're gone now. There comes a time where it's going to have to stop, man. And we are the ones that's going to have to stop it. The police and the law enforcement, they don't care nothing about us. They're going to round us up at the end of it. They're going to round us up on the other end of it and take you off the streets. That's how they do that. They don't care nothing about your life at all. You out here doing this stuff. When we catch you, we going to lock you up and throw away the key because you deserve it. Then we're putting this stuff in the music. We put in this stuff in the videos. We're acting like, we don't we don't care about what they say or what they think. I'm going to say what I want to say. But Ice-T said it as clearly as I could remember with one of the projects that he had. He called it freedom of speech. Just watch what you say. Because what you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. So I hope these brothers take this as a lesson and move on from it. Because if you don't, you're going to keep on bringing down the people who you love and care about. Do I think Thug is guilty of this stuff? I don't think he's really guilty of it. But then again, if he is, what can I say? What can I say other than, damn, bro, why you have to do that? What other thing can I say? Like, damn, bro, why you become this multimillionaire and then you still doing this stuff? I want to see you win. You understand what I'm saying? I want to see you win. I want to see you get out of that situation. You did that so you could get your mother out of that situation. You did that so you don't have to do that shit anymore. Excuse my language. But I want to see your brothers win. But I'm going to be honest with you. When I get tired of hearing about this dope rap, I get tired of hearing about all of this negative stuff that goes on with us all the time. I get tired of hearing about all this street stuff that goes on about with us all the time. That's all we can talk about because some of us, that's what we're actually involved in. That's what we're actually engaging in. That's all we know how to talk about. I want to see y'all win. I don't want to see y'all on the other end of that stuff. I want to see y'all come out of that. I want to see y'all own these blocks, own these houses, and say, you know what? Now that I'm able to do what I do now, we gonna turn the hood around. No, we ain't giving out no damn turkeys like Nino Brown and all these other drug dealers did. Well, I'm gonna give the turkeys to the people who I've been selling the drugs to. No, we ain't doing that no more. We talking about flipping the whole block. We talking about we gonna stop this shit. We making enough money now. I can go and do something else with this money. Go get these brothers that used to do this. Tell them it's time for y'all to clean y'all life up. Let's do something else. Let's get the drugs off our streets. Let's stop selling the drugs to our people and do something different. Instead of spending $2, $3, $4 million on jewelry and all of this stuff, I'm gonna take that $2, $3, $4 million and go over here and build something. Give back to my community. Give these brothers an opportunity to do something different. Now, if you don't want to, that's on you. If you still choose to be a part of this stuff out here and get yourself killed or locked up, that's on you. That's not on me because I gave you an alternative that you didn't want to take that. I gave you something different, but you didn't give a damn about that. You rather still do the shit that you doing. Excuse my language again. It's just my passion. You rather still do the stuff that you out here doing and suffer the consequences regardless. You rather put your life on the line every single day to get it took by the opposition or to get it took by law enforcement. It's just like I said, I want to see y'all win. I want to see y'all say, this lifestyle is not for me or it's not for us anymore. We're going to start pushing this piece. Just like my brother Golden Child been doing in the city of Chicago. He's been going to these neighborhoods where these brothers are known to not like each other. And he's coming in talking about unity. We all we got. Let's love each other and stop doing all that. I know what y'all capable of because I came from the same streets y'all came from. I know what it's like out here because I came from that. But I want to do something different. I want to give back in a different way. I want to see y'all win. The only way we can win is if we come together and say, you know what? It's really time for us to start doing something different with our people and for our people. That's going to spread and everybody's going to see that. It might catch on like wildfire and just spread. And people start being like, you know what? Shit, I done made $9, $10 million on the streets. I'm going to do something different. I don't want no more drugs in my neighborhood anymore. Or I don't want to participate in that shit anymore. Excuse my language again. And I want to go somewhere else. Build another community. We're going to do it different over here. I want to see y'all win, man. Don't want to see y'all go to prison. Don't want to see y'all die. Don't want to see y'all have to go to jail. Don't want to see y'all having to be in these positions where you feel like you either have to testify against your brother or whatever happens. Hey, if you got to take your case, then take your case. Go do your time, get out, do something different. You ain't got to tell on nobody to do that. You don't got to say nothing to nobody about anything to do that. That's why as unpopular as what I'm about to say is probably going to be to a lot of people, I have to give it up to Gunner. Because what he decided to do is he decided to say, look, I'm going to take my responsibility for being a part of something. I'm not testifying against nobody. I'm not saying anything that I don't need to say. I'm going to take my responsibility for it, and I'm going to take my sentence. If I can figure out a way to keep myself out of jail, then I'm gonna do that. If I gotta plead guilty to what I did, then I'll do that. When he said that YSL shouldn't be a gang anymore, I understood where he was coming from when he said that. We shouldn't be out here terrorizing our own neighborhoods. We shouldn't be out here participating in any of this activity if we got the means not to have to do that. Once you start making the money where you can walk away from the hustle, walk away from the hustle. Leave it alone. You don't got to do that shit anymore. Excuse my language again. I'm sorry. This is just how I feel about it. So, once again, brothers, I want to see y'all win, man. I truly want to see y'all win. I don't want to see y'all keep going through these changes. I don't want to see y'all continue to have to put your life on the line for the streets, because the streets don't give a damn about you. Never have and never will. The streets are inanimate objects. The people on the streets are the ones that you should be caring about. The people that are in the streets doing the things that they're doing, those are the people that you should be caring about. The streets are inanimate objects. No loves ever come from any concrete. No loves ever come from a damn street sign with some words on, with some letters on it. No love has ever come from an inanimate neighborhood or a group of houses. Those houses are the homes that we make them into. Those streets that we live on turns into the neighborhoods that we live in. But those actual streets and that concrete don't give a damn about you. It's the people that's in it. It's the people that's on them. When you talk about the hood, you're talking about the people. You're not talking about the damn street. You're the reason that the street got the credibility that it has in the first place. It's not because of it's not because of the neighborhood that it's in. It's not because of the section of the town it's in. It's not because it's on the west end of Atlanta. It's not because it's in the SWATs. It's not because it's in Brooklyn. It's not because it's in Jordan Downs. It's not because it's in the Bay Area. It's not because it's in San Diego. Whatever side of town you from, east side, west side, north side, south side, you give it the credibility that it gets. When those streets were built, they wasn't built with you in mind. They wasn't built for this part of the neighborhood is going to be the drug area. And the dudes that come up, they're going to be the ones who make the neighborhood what they make it. No, it wasn't designed like that. It became that way through circumstances. It became that way because in an indirect way, we made it like that. We give the streets the credibility that they got. Not the damn concrete, not the street sign, not the section of the town it's in, the people that's on the streets. Fifth Ward wasn't Fifth Ward because it was Fifth Ward. Fifth Ward was Fifth Ward because of the people who lived in Fifth Ward. Little Haiti is because of the Little Haiti, the Haitians that lived there. South Central Los Angeles is because of the people who live in South Central Los Angeles. That's who made it who it was. Brooklyn, the Bronx, that's who made it who it was. Chicago, the West Side, the South Side, that the people that lived there is what made it what it was. Not the damn side of town. The people that was in it. We were the reason why those neighborhoods turned into what they turned into. We participated in the things that we did to make those neighborhoods what they turned into. That stuff didn't just happen overnight. It happened because we made it happen. Your love for the set is the reason why everybody love it like they do. O Block is loved because of O Block. You understand what I'm saying? Didn't have a damn thing to do with the projects, the buildings that were that were on that side of town. The people that was in those neighborhoods is what made them what they turned into. So you got brothers and sisters now who done lost loved ones. You got mothers who done lost sons and daughters behind this stuff all over the country. Mothers had their children just to give them up to the streets. Whether they wanted to or not, the streets took them. Not the streets, physical streets, the atmosphere of the streets that we created is what took those children, is what took those grown men away from their parents, away from their mothers, away from their foster parents, whatever. That was a cycle we created. Now we're the only ones that can break the cycle. We're the only ones that can do the different stuff now. We're the only ones that can change that. So I want to see my brothers win. I don't want to see y'all continue to lose. I don't want to see y'all continue to lose your lives, lose your loved ones, lose your mind, lose your soul, lose your spirit. I want to see y'all win, man. But we got to start somewhere. And the only place we can start, I believe, is when we start having this conversation. I don't care if you have it with one of your homies. Each one teach one. If we can get one of them to stop, then that one might be able to talk to somebody else. He might have some children and say, you know what? That's not the way. I don't care what is going on out there. Don't participate in it. There is more of us that don't participate in the crime than there is the ones who do. So we need to focus on that. We need to focus on winning. Like I said, this is just my opinion. This is my clear vision conversation that I'm having with my people. Black people, brown people in particular, and the human family in general. I mean, I know y'all remember movies like The Outsiders and West Side Story. Hey, white people was going through the same thing, but they ended up doing what? They ended up turning that shit around. We don't want to do that anymore. If you want to do that, that's an individual thing. But the majority over here, we ain't doing it. We want to build another community. Maybe it's time for us to start having that mentality. Maybe it's time for us to start wanting to see us live instead of die. Maybe it's time for us to stop worrying about whether or not somebody's snitching on us, because if we ain't doing no crime, then ain't nobody gonna be snitching on us. They ain't gonna have no reason to tell on us if we ain't out here doing nothing that we shouldn't be doing to one another or in the community for that matter. Like I said, this is coming from a place of love, man. I will not allow myself to hate not one person who's went through this, because I've seen the effect that it has with my own eyes in the small town that I live in. And that's the truth. That's a fact. So it's your brother 2020. Wanted to have this conversation with you. Leave your comments below. Tell me what you think. This can be a never-ending conversation when it comes to the conditions that go on in our community. Comes a time where we have to be responsible for a family. So this is your brother, Agent 2020. You have been tuned in to Clear Vision Conversations, and I'm out. Peace.
In this current climate, day and time, information needs to be given clearly. In this case, Clear Vision with 2020 is a podcast for the people, by the people, that does exactly that. Your host keeps an open eye and mind when dealing with any issue at hand. We empower our audience with knowledge. You matter. And here, I use my voice to support and represent the people. The people are the human family who loves truth. Logical thinking and conversation skills are required for communication. News, culture, music, and entertainment with a clear look from a different perspective. Clear Vision with 2020.